Hey, it's Todd Duncan. Welcome to Todd Duncan TV. The title of this lesson is simply Legacy. I've started trying to record this episode about 10 times, and every time in my mind I get about this far in and I start to kind of crash a little bit. I haven't been able to do a TV show for a while, and the primary reason is that I've been in a mode of just adjusting to life without my dad. And my dad passed away on December 27th, and it was not part of the plan. Nobody's death is really ever part of the plan. And even though my father had a really great life and was getting ready to celebrate his entry into his 92nd year, he had a fall, and they found out through all the x-rays in his fall, beyond all the broken bones, that his cancer had come back. And, you know, so from the time that he fell until the time that he passed away was only about 14 days. And so, you know, it was and is for everybody, obviously, a super hard season when you lose somebody you love. It's even a harder season when you lose a parent, I think. And for me as a guy, it's an even harder season when you lose your dad, who's your hero. And I have tried to put in my mind the challenge of never being able to tell him I love him again, and never ever being able to feel his hug again, and never being able to, as weird as this may sound, smell his skin and smell his hair when I hug him. And I'll never be able to hear again from him his classic words at the end of every phone call, at the end of every meeting that we had, every dinner we had. "I love you, Tato." "I love you, Tato" was always his words, you know, and that was kind of my nickname from him to me. And I was reaching out and having a conversation with Tom Ferry, who many of you know is a good friend of mine, and I was telling him that it was a hard December, that my dad had passed, and I got this text from Tom, and beyond him saying, "I'm sorry, it certainly sounds like it was a rough December for sure," Tom said, "So many ways to honor him, his greatness, his legacy. What are you thinking about doing?" And it was kind of weird because I hadn't thought about anything. But as soon as I heard that word legacy, I thought, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a TV episode, and I'm going to honor my dad and his legacy. So I want to tell you just three things that, you know, as I sit here today and record this, that I think about not being able to hear my dad and feel my dad and see my dad and talk to my dad. What I have this beautiful hard drive in my mind from a father who had three things that I think are indelibly imprinted in me that will keep me always celebrating him and the impact that he had in his life, on his family, and on his world. And the first thing that I think about when I think about my dad is I think of my dad as a man of significant faith. His purpose was his faith. And I have to tell you that in my life, through every season that I've had that's been good, and every season that I've had that has been hard, my father has always reminded me that I need to have faith in my future. He has reminded me constantly that my best days are ahead of me. And as a man of faith, and as a guy that celebrated his faith and his relationship with a Heavenly Father, he was always purposeful about his life being just a blip on a radar of his otherwise grand journey in the eternal softness and grace of his Heavenly Father. And I have to tell you that through my entire life, that watching him be a man of faith and having that be his core purpose and his central theme of life, to me is so invigorating today as I deal not only with the security of in my world, in our family's world, knowing where he is, that he's in heaven and that his pain is gone. The legacy that he has left me is to never, ever, ever take a step in life without having faith. And he oftentimes reminded me that sometimes faith is just having fantastic adventures and trusting him and trusting a higher power and trusting the pathway that you are on. And I have to tell you too that as I began to read the notes that he wrote 10 years ago about the kind of celebration at the end of his life that he wanted to have when people crowded a church and it was standing room only, that he wanted his faith to be known and he wanted his faith to be amplified. And for me, it was just, I think about 91 years of his life, and I think about 60 of those years being so principally centered around that purpose. And so this is me saying to you that in your life, you need to have a grand purpose. In my life, I need to have a grand purpose. I just finished a 3-day academy with about 100 professional loan originators, and I can't tell you how many emails I've gotten and how many text messages I've received, and even a few voicemails of guys and gals really struggling at different ages, in their 30s and in their 60s, and trying to figure out, what is my grand purpose and what is it really about? And so when I think about my dad and I think about influence and I think about impact, I think about purpose. The second thing that I absolutely know that my father was about is my father was a leader. My father was never in it to be a father that was purely likable. He wanted to be a father that was impactful. And I think at times we go through our life and we're worried about being liked. And I think even as a dad with 2 young men, 22 and soon to be 21, I struggle. I want my sons to love me. And yet more important than that is I want my sons to respect me. And I think sometimes when we lose the idea of leading and all we're trying to do is love, sometimes we forget the impact that love may be making or may not be making. And there's a positive side to both of those. My father's leadership was never, ever having me question whether or not he loved me. My father's leadership was always about him wanting me to respect him, not authoritatively, but from a leadership standpoint. And the way that he led was the way that would make an impact in my life. And hundreds and hundreds of times as his son, he would always comment that I'm trying to lead you to the best version of you. And I remember being in college, and I remember being in pre-med, and I remember not doing really well in college, and I remember coming home for the holidays, and I remember being in the driveway with my father, and we had one of those leadership moments. And my father said to me, he said, you don't have to be a doctor if you don't want to be a doctor. And he gave me permission as my father and as a leader to make a different decision, and to make a decision that he felt would be my best version of me. And I said to him, I said, what do you think I should do? And he said, God has gifted you with leadership and influence. And he said, you should be in business. You should study business. You should change your major. You should get a business degree, and you should see the impact that you might be able to make in the world when you use the gift that God has naturally given you. And that birthed for me a transition in my life that allowed me to get into the loan origination business, and now has allowed me this incredible honor to work with literally millions of people in the 26 years that I have run our company, and to impact thousands and thousands and thousands of home buyers every month, to impact thousands and thousands of loan originators and their real estate agents all over the world. I mean, it was one moment of leadership from my dad, who wasn't in it for a popularity contest. He was in it because of a principally centered conviction that you need to do what you're good at doing. You need to do what you've been wired to do. And I look back on that and I think, man, if that conversation hadn't taken place, if my dad had not chosen to lead in that moment, I can honestly say that I don't know that I would be where I am. And so no matter where you are as a father or a mother, no matter where you are as a daughter or a son, it is important to lead. It is important to master self-leadership. It is really important to be intentional about what you do. And it is really important to not tolerate the circumstances and the people that bring you down in life. And my dad always told me from the moment I started swinging a bat in Little League, he said to me, he said, hang with winners, hang with winners. My dad saved my life in college because I was or in high school, because I was hanging with three guys that he didn't think were going to go anywhere, and I thought they were going everywhere. And my dad said, remember, hang with winners, hang with winners. The guys you're hanging with are not winners, hang with winners. And now I can sit here today and say that hanging with winners has been the best decision that I've ever made. And so I credit my dad for being a leader that developed respect. And for that, I'll always be grateful. And I think the third thing that my dad gave me, and I'm amazed at how much in just business and life we don't acknowledge this, but my dad gave me the gift of indelible memories. And I have next to my chair, I have a photo of my dad, and this photo sits on my desk. It's sat on my desk for the 25 years that I've had the photo, and it's just a stunning picture of my dad. He was in his early 60s. He had a tuxedo on, and I wanted to see my dad every day because I wanted to be able to know that today I needed to reflect on the lessons that my dad was teaching me. And not only was he a purposeful man of faith, not only was he a leader, but my dad was a man of love, a man of deep and real love, indelibly. And he took moments as often as he could in life to let you know as a son. I have two other brothers and other people that he did this for, but he had this commitment, this discipline around memorializing the moments that were special between himself and his son. And one day I awakened and I had a note, and I read this note from my father. It had been on my desk for a day. And I opened this note, and it was such a powerful note. And I had this I don't want to ever lose this note. And, you know, I had filing systems. There was no such thing as an iPhone. When I got this note, there was no way to do anything other than photocopy it, which I did. But I wanted to have the original. I wanted to keep things, and I didn't know what I could do. And so for some reason, it dawned on me that maybe what I could do is I could, behind his picture, in the actual frame of the picture that he gave me, maybe I could save the notes that my dad wrote me. And so behind his picture, I have these notes that he has sent to me over my life that demonstrated his love for me. And I'm just going to pull this one note out. It was dated May 7th, 1995. And my dad said after a weekend that he and I hung together, he said, "To my dear son, what a grand weekend we had, and how thankful I am for your wonderful gift of our weekend together. Today I'm still humming the tunes. I'm reflecting on the messages. And I'm basking in God's love for us. What a wonderful time of worship and fellowship as a father and son. I know, son, that both of our future paths will have some difficult times. That's how life is. But we have assurance that God is with us and will never give us anything that we can't handle with Him. Please know that you have a faith partner in your dad who's committed to always praying for you, knowing that God will work out His ultimate purpose, His wonderful purpose in your life. Isn't it wonderful to have great faith and a great God? How wonderful that we can share that together forever with all my love, Dad." And I look back on, and there's about nine more notes in here. And my dad just had the discipline of just writing cards and writing notes. And I guess for me, you know, these notes are one of the ways that I'm always going to be able to remember my dad. And I think one of the things that we have to look at in life is, how do we let others know how special they are? How do we let others know how grateful we are? And how do we become an encourager in the marketplace with our clients and the people that we love most, and taking just those simple moments to handwrite a note that can change somebody's life forever? And that you can know today, as we watch this episode and as we talk about this, that if your notes are real and your notes are meaningful and your notes are life-changing, those notes will be kept forever. And decades later, it can make an impact in somebody else's life. And decades later, it can make an impact in your life. And I think about my dad, and I think of the blessing of my life with him, and I will always be grateful for his faith. I'll always be grateful for his leadership, and I'll always be grateful for his love. And I'm going to do everything I can in my power to be the same kind of man to my sons as my dad was to me. Thanks for watching.